The boy appeared out of nowhere, barefoot on the sun-cracked asphalt, his small shadow trembling beneath the harsh midday light. Dust clung to his cheeks like dried tears, and his shirt hung off him as if it belonged to someone else, someone bigger, someone safer. His lips moved before anyone noticed him, forming words so quiet they almost vanished into the heat, but heavy enough to stop 6 roaring motorcycles at once. He leaned forward, eyes wide with fear and courage mixed together, and let the truth spill out in a broken whisper that didn't sound like it belonged to a child at all. They had taken his sister. And in that instant, everything changed. If you believe that kindness can still shake the world, if you believe that second chances are real and that strangers can become heroes, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel Only Kindness. Your support keeps stories like this alive. The bikers had been riding since morning, engines cutting through the open highway under a blazing blue sky. It was supposed to be an ordinary stop, nothing more than fuel and water before heading back toward the city. They were a mixed group, men bound not by blood but by loyalty earned over years of hard roads and harder lives. There was Marcus Hale, broad-shouldered and graying, whose quiet presence carried the weight of leadership without needing words. Beside him was Rafe Calder, lean and sharp-eyed, always scanning the horizon like he expected trouble to rise out of the earth itself. Jonah Pike rode with them too, younger, restless, his past still clinging to him like smoke, and Elias Boone, whose scars told stories no one ever asked to hear. To the outside world, they looked intimidating, loud machines and leather vests under the unforgiving sun. But none of that prepared them for the sight of a trembling child standing alone in the middle of nowhere. The boy's name, they would later learn, was Silas. He couldn't have been more than 8 years old. His hands were clenched so tight his knuckles had turned white, and his eyes darted behind him every few seconds, as if the very road might swallow him back up. He hadn't planned to stop bikers. He had just been running since his legs burned and his lungs felt like fire, until the noise of engines gave him one last chance. His sister, Mara, was all he had left. Their mother was gone, their father long disappeared into the quiet cruelty of neglect. They lived on the edges of things, forgotten by systems meant to protect children like them. And that morning, in broad daylight, a van had pulled up near the old bus stop where they waited for scraps of shade. Men had grabbed Mara while Silas froze, terror rooting him to the ground. By the time he could move, the van was gone, and the world felt impossibly large and empty. Marcus knelt down in front of Silas, the concrete warm beneath his knees, his presence steady and calm. He didn't ask questions right away. He didn't need to. The fear in the boy's eyes told him everything. Around them, the other bikers had gone quiet, the engines ticking softly as they cooled. Cars passed on the distant highway, unaware that something irreversible had just unfolded. Silas pointed toward a stretch of dirt road disappearing into scrubland, his whole body shaking as if the fear might tear him apart from the inside. He had nothing else to offer them except truth, and somehow, that was enough. They didn't hesitate, not one of them. Whatever plans they'd had dissolved under the midday sun. The world had placed a child in front of them and asked a question without words. What kind of men were they going to be? Marcus stood, meeting the eyes of his brothers, and the answer passed between them in silence. They would not ride away. The dirt road was rough and unforgiving, lined with dry grass and abandoned structures that spoke of better times long past. Dust rose in thick clouds behind the bikes as they followed the direction Silas had given, the heat pressing down like a weight. Every mile felt like a race against time. Rafe's jaw was clenched, his mind already working through possibilities, while Jonah's hands trembled on the handlebars, anger bubbling just beneath his skin. Elias said nothing at all, his eyes dark, memories of his own lost childhood surfacing uninvited. Above them, the sun blazed on, indifferent. They found the van near an old warehouse complex, its paint faded, its windows dark. The place looked abandoned, but the stillness felt wrong, too deliberate. Marcus signaled for silence, and the bikers dismounted, moving with purpose. There was no grand plan, no heroic speech, just instinct sharpened by years of surviving in a world that rarely played fair. Inside, the air was stale, heavy with the scent of oil and dust. Somewhere deeper in the building, a sound echoed, soft but unmistakable. A child. What happened next unfolded fast and slow all at once. The bikers moved through the shadows, confronting the men who had thought no one would come. There was chaos, fear, and the raw reality of consequences finally catching up with those who believed daylight crimes would go unseen. By the time it was over, Mara was safe, wrapped in Elias's jacket, clinging to him like a lifeline. Her eyes were red, her face streaked with tears, but she was alive. Silas collapsed to his knees when he saw her, the relief so overwhelming it stole what little strength he had left. The authorities arrived later, sirens cutting through the afternoon air, questions flying in every direction. Marcus spoke calmly, clearly, leaving nothing out. The bikers didn't ask for credit. They didn't need applause. They watched from a distance as Silas and Mara were given water, blankets, and the first real attention anyone had offered them in a long time. The system that had failed them once was given another chance to do better. Social workers arrived, their faces softening when they saw the children together, holding on to each other as if the world might try to tear them apart again. As the sun began to lower, casting long golden shadows across the cracked pavement, something shifted inside all of them. Jonah wiped his face when he thought no one was looking. Rafe stared at the horizon, silent. Elias crouched nearby, his hand resting lightly on Mara's shoulder, grounding himself as much as her. Marcus watched Silas carefully, noticing how the boy's posture slowly straightened, how the fear in his eyes began to loosen its grip. It was the kind of moment that didn't make headlines, the kind that slipped through the cracks of history. But it mattered. Before they left, Silas looked up at the bikers, his expression serious beyond his years. He didn't say much, but he didn't need to. Gratitude radiated from him like warmth. For the first time since that morning, he believed the world might not be entirely cruel. And for the bikers, that belief was worth more than any mile they'd ever ridden. They rode away as evening crept closer, engines humming low, the road stretching endlessly ahead. The day had begun like any other, but it ended with something heavier and brighter carried in their chests. They would remember the boy, the warehouse, the heat of the sun and the weight of responsibility that came with being in the right place at the right time. Not heroes, just men who chose not to look away. If this story reached something deep inside you, if it reminded you that compassion can still rise in the most unexpected places, please take a moment to like this video, share it, and leave a comment. Your engagement helps stories of kindness travel further than fear ever could. And before this story ends, I have one special request for you. Write a comment sharing where you're watching from and one small act of kindness you believe can change a life. Because somewhere, right now, a child like Silas is running toward hope, and somewhere else, someone is deciding whether to stop and listen.